Professor Lydia Mosi. She's an associate professor of cell and molecular biology at the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, University of Ghana. And she's also the Deputy Director Administration of the West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, or WACBIP for short. So her PhD is in microbiology from the University of Tennessee, and her research focuses on the transmission of Buruli ulcer disease, which is caused by Mycobacterium ulcerans, identifying metabolic markers for the development of diagnostic tools and integration of diagnosis and management of neglected tropical skin diseases. I wanted to know that she's been a recipient of so many awards and mentorship programs. She's also led programs for women in STEM. She's a fellow of the African Academy of Sciences Affiliates Program, and then an African Science Leadership Program facilitator. So I wanted to know that we have a woman who's also, I'm looking at her key publications here, and I tell you, she has written. So I would, with much pleasure, like to introduce Professor Lydia Mosi. Please, let's give her flowers. I have flowers.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of information about how to communicate science. And I also want to congratulate all of you for being selected to be part of this program. And online. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So thank you, EFeMS, for selecting these lovely ladies. I hope you value the opportunity and you get a chance to improve and update yourself as a female in science. Okay, so ScienceCom. What is ScienceCom, I guess? As scientists, our whole life is spent either on a bench doing experiments and trying to make sure that the experiments work. Sometimes you even end up praying for your bacteria or for your viruses to grow well so that you can get good data and then publish the data. Most of the time, you think that the end point of a scientific experiment or research is only publication. That's what somehow we are schooled to believe, that your worth as a scientist depends on how much you have published. Publications are very good. In fact, most higher education institutions use publications for promotion, for career advancement, and so on and so forth. But they are not the only way in which we can communicate science. You can also communicate science through oral presentations at conferences. You can communicate the science that you do by translating it into something which is much more useful for the immediate society around you. I'll give you examples of all of these things. You can also communicate your science in art or using cartoons. And again, I'll give you an example of that as well. But at the end of it all, the reason why you want to share your findings with the scientific world as well as the world around you is because you have discovered something that can influence policy, can change the way people think about a subject. So for instance, when the COVID-19 pandemic happened, for the most part, we were doing things in Ghana according to what people in the West dictated to us. In other words, we went straight into, the West was doing quarantine. So we also decided to do quarantine. The West went into lockdown. So we also decided to do what? Lockdown. Until we started doing our own investigations here in Ghana, including identifying the populations that really were infected with the virus but didn't have any disease, did we get to realize that, yes, we all got COVID. Almost everybody got COVID. But fortunately or unfortunately, we didn't have severe disease like there was in the West. The science also told us that it was simply because we as Africans, or we here in Ghana, had been exposed to so many different other pathogens, which had primed our immune system so that even when COVID came, we already had kind of like protection against it. Our story was very different from what was happening in the West because they don't have the kind of resilience that we have, right? Now, it was because of these laboratory-based studies that we got this information. If it stayed only in a publication and didn't go beyond the publication to influence policy, we would not have gone into, let's stop the lockdown. So the communication went from research in a lab to someone who's in government to change the policy of lockdown to let's start opening up in small places and let's start going back to things as they were before the pandemic happened. ScienceCom has evolved from just a publication to now action and changing a way of life, which makes us pause for a moment and ask ourselves, when we are designing our research projects as scientists, do we only think about what you get at the end of the research as your data, or we also think about how you want to communicate this data beyond the science that you did in the lab? For some scientific studies, you have to go into the field to gather data. You have to go into the communities. Even for COVID-19, you have to go and test people. When you test the people and you bring their samples to the lab and you finish working on their samples, what do you do with the information? Do you go back to the community and tell them that this is what we found, and so because of what we found, do this or don't do that? That's little bit of do this, don't do that is what we call policy influencing, or changing the way society behaves because of research that you have done. Okay. Now, the policy influencing can come in so many ways. Sometimes it can even come as a newspaper article because a lot of people read newspapers. Or alternatively, you can use blogs because now a lot of people use blogs. You can even post on LinkedIn. People go and look at LinkedIn profiles to see what you are doing. And based on that, you are influencing policy because someone will see it and say, hey, let's look at this and follow it up a little bit further. I also mentioned that you can communicate your science in terms of art. And we actually have an EFeMS alumnus. Her name is Mami Kia Aqua. She is finishing up her PhD in the department, and she does science communication with art. She's right, fantastic, like this. This here is, if you follow it panel by panel, you can see that she's followed a particular discussion. Probably it's even a talk, a research talk. And as she's hearing the talk, she's drawing all of these things and capturing the keywords in a format which is easily appreciated by someone who is not a core scientist at heart. And it's beautiful to look at. It's very informative, has a lot of detail, and breaks down the complex scientific terms and whatnot into something which is not only visually stimulating, but packed with knowledge as well. For three of our successive WACBIB research conferences, she has sat through every single talk and done something like this for every single talk at the research conference and compiled a visual book of abstracts of every single talk. You can imagine what that means, right? Visually stimulating, and then you can easily get the picture right off the back. Okay, so there are so many ways in which you can communicate your science. I mentioned presentation at conferences as another way to communicate your science. And you have to start from grassroots. In my lab, for instance, every student who comes through my lab, whether it's an undergrad, graduate student or whatnot, at some point in time, you will be given the opportunity to present the work that you are doing or a paper that we are all discussing. Sometimes people say that, oh, they are shy. They can't speak in front of a crowd. And so because of they are shy, they don't want to do it. But you have to start from somewhere. And there's no right or wrong interpretation or feeling about it. You have to start from somewhere. I remember growing up, one of the things that I heard was if you have to give a talk about your science, you have to practice, practice. Sometimes even stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself in the mirror and then say what you have to say about what you are going to present. So that you can appreciate the manners or like the mannerisms on your face or the gestures that you put on your face to see what you look like in front of an audience to help build your confidence. Okay. You also have to find the approach that works best for you to know your science. If you don't know your science, you can't communicate it. You have to know your science in terms of you did the experiment, you stood behind the bench and did everything. You and got the results yourself. You probably discussed the results with other people in your lab, or you read about it and now you have a discussion of it. You know what it means. Nobody else in the room knows the work that you did better than you. Do you understand? So when you are standing in front of people, you have to convince them that you know you own the work. If you stand there and you shake and even when they ask you a question, you are not sure what to say, then it means you don't own the work and your credibility as a scientist goes down. So owning the work starts from how you even design the experiment to understand it before you even deliver it. And when you have to give the presentation, normally every conference, every meeting will give you timelines, maybe come and talk for 15 minutes, and then they'll ask you questions for maybe another 10 minutes or so. That talk for 15 minutes, come and answer question for 10 minutes, is not something which you should take trivially. It doesn't mean you have 25 minutes to give the presentation. If the conference says talk for 15 minutes, you talk for 14 minutes. You don't go overboard. The minute you go overboard, you have disrespected everybody else who is sitting in the room because you have not valued their time, right? So you speak for the allotted time that you have been given, and then you welcome questions because that's an integral part of giving a presentation or communicating your science, respecting people's times. The other thing which when you are delivering the presentation, you need to pay attention to is the medium that you are using. If you are doing the presentation on your laptop and there's a pointer that you have to use, you don't come and in the 15 minutes that you have for your presentation, now start learning how to use the laptop and then the pointer. That thing is, and for me, I find it very unethical. If you have a presentation, you need to go ahead of time. Make sure that your slides are loaded. Make sure that you know how to use the pointer so that when you get there, the minute you take the pointer and you greet the audience, you start delivering your talk. You buy your confidence by doing that. But if you are now looking for, what do I do? You just lose everybody. People will think that you are not a serious person. So you prepare ahead of time, and then when you stand there, now you deliver what you know as your research. You also have to have a certain kind of flair in delivering your presentation. Yes, it's science, but you need to intertwine the science with something realistic and give enough examples which are tangible. So it's not just coming to stand there and talk 100% about the science, and then sometimes you are talking so high above the audience, or sometimes you're even talking below the audience. In other words, you need to know who your audience is. If you are delivering a presentation in front of your supervisors, then you have to use the right terminology. You don't go and stand there and say, so I added this thing to this stuff, and then that stuff made this thing. No, because these people are people who know their science. So you go and use the right terminology. I added this DNA to this vector, and then I got this or whatever. You are using the right words. But if you are speaking to an audience which is like an SHS class, they haven't reached there yet. They have not reached your level. So you need to find words which are easily relatable to them, and introduce a lot more real life examples for them to appreciate what you're talking about. It's all part of the delivery that you are going to give for people to appreciate your science. Okay. You need to make eye contact with people when you are talking so that even when people are sleeping and your eye falls on them, they'll be like, hey, let me open my eyes. So that the presenter doesn't feel like I think they are boring or whatever. Okay, you need to have good gestures. And sometimes you can even pose a question in the middle of your presentation. You pose a question. You don't really want an answer. It can be a rhetorical question, but at least pose a question to draw the audience back into wherever their mind wandered away from during your presentation. And all of these things are, you don't, how do I even say it? You learn them. It's not something that anybody in the world is born with. You learn how to do these things bit by bit. And it comes from repeated trials, standing in front of a mirror repeatedly, identifying your style of presentation, facing the audience, not facing your slides, and reading from the slides. No, that is all is giving bad energy vibes, like big time, right? So you engage the audience, draw them in so that by the time you are done, you get an applause which is worthy of what you have prepared for to deliver on that day. Okay. When you are giving a science presentation as well on your research, don't forget the second half is as equally as important as preparing for the presentation in terms of PowerPoint or whatever. The second half is the question time. It is as equally as important as the first part, which is you delivering the presentation. If the second half involves asking of questions and people are asking you questions, prepare to have responses. Prepare to have responses. It means that whilst you are putting your slides together, you are thinking about every information that you put on the slide. If anybody asks me about that piece of information, I should be able to give them a response. If you don't have a response for it, don't put it on the slide. Sometimes I see a lot of people copy and paste pictures from the internet into their presentation because maybe at a particular point they wanted to show a picture which looked like that. But then they didn't even read to see whether that picture was within their context. So for instance, if I want to put a picture of, let's say I work on skin diseases. So I want to put a picture of someone with a skin disease in an African context. And I go and pick a picture from the internet on a white person. And I put it in my publication, in my presentation. It doesn't harmonize with the work that I'm doing, which is on Black skin. So you just don't copy and paste without having any meaning to the work that we are doing. You understand? So that at the end of the day, if anybody was to ask you a question or convey another meaning of anything on your slides, they will see it. You'll be able to give a response directly because you've matched it perfectly to the topic that you are delivering. Okay. The other thing about preparing your slides, I know I'm going a little bit back and forth because I didn't have a script. And as I'm talking, the ideas are falling in my head. So the other thing about preparing your slides is I see a lot of people putting like a thesis on one slide, plenty text. If you are using PowerPoint for a presentation, remember it is not Word, Microsoft Word. It's not a Word document. It's a PowerPoint. And PowerPoints are to capture bullets for you to remember to talk about or to have images so that people can visualize what you are saying. If you go and now put text, then you might as well just have shared a Word document with everybody and said, hey, okay, this is the presentation I'm going to give you. Go and read it. You could have done that, but no, it's a presentation. That's why you're using PowerPoint or Canva. So you put your ideas, bullet ideas, which you would develop during your speech. That is why it's not good to read from your slides, because if you read from your slides, you're going to be really reading bullets which are not developed. And so you'll not be conveying anything which is important, or you'll be pointing people to pictures, which doesn't, like when they go, they'll not even remember, right? So think about the fact that you don't have to populate your slides with text, but you have to put bullet points and pictures. Wherever you got the pictures from, you have to reference it. Otherwise, you are plagiarizing. You know what plagiarizing is? When you're taking somebody's work as if it's yours. Wherever you got a picture from, even if it's an internet source or a website that you got it from, go and copy the website's address and put it as a footnote on the slide. You are giving credence to the one who developed that picture or that image. Otherwise, you are plagiarizing. All right. All of these things you learn as you keep doing these things. Okay. Um, and then probably just to um wind up, I guess, don't forget about your own personal outlook and your appearance when you're going to give a presentation. It really matters. Okay. You have to, everybody has their own identity and whatnot, but at least we have certain agreeable societal norms on how someone should look when they are giving a presentation. You don't go and wear a dress which is so revealing that when you're standing there, instead of paying attention to what you are doing, yeah, people are looking at you like you are some object B. Okay. Look professional, look the part. Don't go and do hair that covers your face that no, like look the part of the science or the topic that you're going to deliver. That aura builds your confidence and credibility as a scientist. And then you can deliver your presentation gracefully. Okay. This is a nutshell of some of the things that I can think about off the top of my head. I want to stop here and then ask you if you have questions. In fact, not if you have questions. Everybody should ask a question about presentation. Every single person, even those online, ask questions and then we can discuss a bit further because this is the part that I like best, answering the questions or doubts that you might have. So please, those online as well, please, each and every one of you is expected to ask a question. Mhm.
Hello,
Hi, online peoples.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Good
Grace.
to hear from you, and I'm happy to have been part of this program, and I'm glad and really appreciate your presentation. But I have one concern. So I am someone into tech, but then in health. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between tech and health, and my specialty is data. It's quite difficult finding someone like me in the research space because most of the times I've been on most research groupings and uh, I only find people in biosciences, bio in the lab, chemistry. But finding someone like me combining tech and health has been quite a challenge for me. And sometimes getting even papers on topics that I want to work on is very difficult. So I don't know. This is like my third um group I'm joining now, and I still see the same thing. It's the biosciences, it's medicine, it's chemistry. Is there anything you are doing for us for those coming? Actually, I'm from a non-tech background. I was a nutrition officer, and I decided to get into tech. So I'm trying to link nutrition and tech, and it's been quite difficult. I always find myself alone in any group that I get into, like the first speaker said. So is there anything they are doing, or are there people that I don't know of that maybe I can link up to who are in the same field as I am trying to get in Ghana or elsewhere, because it's been quite difficult for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Grace. When you say tech, what kind of tech are you referring to?
Okay, so I was a nutrition officer before I went in to do health information. But the whole idea is the core thing I really want to do is data, getting data quality in our health um in our health sector. So I'm really big on data. So data is really what I want to do. So getting data quality, getting the right data entries done. And because I've been a data collector from the roots, I know how data is being manipulated and how data is being worked on in Ghana Health Service. So I am big on data, but finding someone in the same field as me, data, health data particularly, has been quite a challenge for me. So most of the times I get into research institutions and then I try to find data anywhere I am and then I work with. So I've worked with some labs and I was a bioinformatics, and but that is really not what I really want to do. I really want to get data quality and data entry, the right data entries into the Ghana health system. That has been very difficult. I can't seem to find anyone
Okay.
around. And
All right. So I think this is a little bit beyond my remit, but I do have a few suggestions for you. My suggestions will be anyone who wants to work with data, data analytics, data entry needs to link up with a group that does work in public health. That's where, when you plug in, you become the most beneficial because they do work on epidemiological data, which has everything to do with collecting data from participants within communities appropriately using the right kind of software like Redcap or whatnot, and then sitting down and analyzing the data. That's what I can think about. Now, public health is extremely common. I mean, even at Noguchi, they have a public health unit or an epidemiological unit. Even on Lake on campus, I know we have a public health, a whole school dedicated to public health. I do have a couple of contacts as well who do public health work and data analytics work. Additionally, if you are going through the bioinformatic route, as a nutritionist or as a bioscientist or whatnot, there's this whole new angle of um, engineering data based on known compounds and doing molecular docking kind of experiments. And this is towards drug discovery or drug design. So there are some synthetic compounds which are banked in a database. And what these kind of experiments or these kinds of investigations do is try and see which of these small molecules or compounds in the database are can be easily docked into drug targets or vaccine targets for onward wet lab experiments as possible drug candidates or whatnot. So there are quite a few ways in which you can plug in as a data scientist in with a chemist or with a biochemist, and also looking at the public health routes um, um, and focusing more on epidemiological studies. So that's those are two ways in which I can see you embedding yourself appropriately in the sciences. I don't know if it answers your question, but that's the best thing I can think about at this moment, Grace. Does
okay,
it help?
yeah, it does.
Okay, okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome, Grace.
So I would like to ask a question on
You have to
when
tell me your name first. So please, people, I can see their name. I can't see your name.
please I'm Marta Sedipia. Yes. A graduate of University of Health and Allied Sciences, and I'm currently working part-time at microbiology. UG Medical School. So I was told when presenting as a beginner and you are shy, you shouldn't look directly into the faces of those you are presenting to. I'd like to know if that's true or not.
Please, it's not true. In fact, I've told my lab this before, and anyone in my lab will laugh at this. But I remember my mother said, when you're presenting, imagine everyone in the room naked. That's what my mother told me. But no, you do have to make eye contact. And it's not an easy thing to do. But you know something that helps? Doing that practice in front of a mirror helps you with eye contact, because when you're standing in front of a mirror, you're looking at your face, right? And you are seeing how you look. And that somehow gives you some sort of confidence. So if you haven't tried it before, try it. I know some girls will sing in front of a mirror and whatnot, and what it builds confidence. That's why they do it. Okay. Even when you're shy and you do that, you feel good about yourself sometimes. You're like, I look good, oh, So please don't avert eye contact. Make it not with one person. Scan the room. You make it with one person, make it with another person. But mentally, you have to, how do I mean? You are making the eye contact, but you're not, I don't want to say you're not seeing them, because if you're not seeing them, because in the moment that you are making the eye contact, you are talking about your science. So you are seeing them but you're not appreciating them in your mind's eye, but you are visually seeing them. It doesn't make sense, but in my head, I how do I even say it? It's like I can see you, but in the moment, I'm like my whole concentration is on what I'm saying. So even though I'm seeing you, I'm not seeing you enough to unsettle my delivery. So I make eye contact, move. I make eye contact, move. And sometimes you can fix your gaze at the back of the room. Anyone at a point at the back of your room, anyone seeing you would think you are making eye contact with them. But you're not hiding your face or looking at the slide. That one, dear, we don't like it. Next question.
So,
Your name is?
okay, please, I'm Gladys Agab. A graduate from the University for Development Studies, Tamale. I also read biochemistry. Yeah. National Service Personnel at CDS. So my question is, you said the second part of the presentation is equally important as the first part. And I want to know, sometimes we said we should always put what we know we can explain in the slides so as to prevent being asked questions that we will not be able to answer. So in case you do that, but then there is something that you could explain on the surface level, but then the audience will want you to go deeper and you don't have that kind of delivery in that situation, what do you do?
Good. It happens a lot. It happens a lot when you be asked a question that you absolutely don't have a response for. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry, I don't know too much about this further, but I can find out and tell you, or find out and learn about it and update my slides with that information. There's nothing wrong with saying you don't know. Absolutely nothing. It also makes you more credible, even. It makes you more credible, because if you try and answer and you don't answer well and you go and lie, even what you presented that you knew about, people will be like, this person. So sometimes it's better to say, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to this. I can find it and update my slides with it. I can find it and discuss further with my supervisor. I can find out and come and discuss with you. Right? This is forward thinking and better. Thank you.
My name is Patience Okupukwala. I'm a graduate of University of Education, Uniba. I studied mathematics with economics, and honestly, That's the same question I wanted to ask. I've been laughing throughout when she was asking the question because that was actually the same thing I wanted to ask. So I think I answered.
Oh, but think of something else. There's definitely, you've given a presentation before, right? What was one of the things that you were not confident about before you gave the presentation?
My presentation was on how to make students understand circuit theorems better because mostly, especially in SHS, mostly students find circuit theorem to be complicated topics. So I used this software, GeoGebra, to teach them to understand it better. But I realized that I was having some challenge with the software when I was presenting. But later on, that was a little bit challenge that I came out with. They asked me certain questions that I couldn't really answer because I wasn't really good with IT software stuff. So that was why I wanted to.
That's why you wanted. But apart from that, nothing else has. So if I tell you to stand up and give a presentation right now, you have no issue, girl.
The only issue I'll have is when I'm not fully prepared
Okay.
with it.
Okay.
Therefore, I have to actually
Prepare more. Okay. Great. So you have actually added to what my topic is about. Preparing, delivering in front of a mirror, delivering to your, in fact, sometimes you can deliver to your mother or anyone in your house who will listen and let them ask you the basic level question. It makes you think about whether you're going above your audience or below your audience, right? So thank you for that. Basma, I know this lady.
My name is Basma. I'm a research assistant here at WorkBib. So my question is, if for example you've been presenting to a certain, like every single time you are presenting to that group and then you have gotten comfortable with them, how do you stop yourself from being overconfident?
That's a hard question. How do you stop yourself from being overconfident? Are you ever overconfident? You're complacent with them. Okay. I think every opportunity that you get to give a presentation should be a learning experience for you. If it ceases to be a learning experience, then you have to challenge yourself more. Challenge yourself more. It's good to be comfortable with a group. Like, for instance, me, I'm very comfortable with my research group. Okay. And so when I'm giving a presentation, I have a certain way in which I'll give a presentation. But I want the people in my research group to leave having learned something more. And this is where you challenge yourself a little bit more. Add something that would be a learning point for both you yourself and the people who are going to listen to you. Okay. That means you are building your own level of competence and you are pulling the people in your research group along with you. Okay. So I would say never ever get to a point where you are so confident and complacent that you become arrogant, but always adopt this learning demeanor and challenge yourself more along the way. Okay. Good. I know this lady as well.
So please, my name is Susanna, also a research assistant here at WorkBabe. My question is that you said that when you are presenting, you should get yourself acquainted with the materials that you'll be using. So assuming you've done all that, you went ahead, tried everything with every material that you'll be using, for instance, your pointer, you've gathered all the courage along the way, and then it doesn't work. What should you do at that instant?
It's your family people who have followed you into the place. At that point, you say a small prayer and say, "Hey, you people leave me alone." No, on a more serious note, that's where you have to introduce what I would call a small I don't want to call it sidebar, but you introduce some humor into it at that point. It's a perfect opportunity to keep breaking the ice with the audience and quickly resolving the issue. Okay. So, yes, it's possible that the pointer would fail you. It's possible that the slides would stop. It's possible that the lights would go off. Okay. But in all of this, in your preparation stage, if you know who your tech person is, at that point in time, you can easily turn to the tech person and tell the person, please, can you help me with this? And still keep engaged with the audience. If you know the material, it means you even know what is going to happen on the next slide. Thank you. You even know what is going to happen on the next slide. So you can still continue talking without necessarily projecting your slides. Remember, the PowerPoint presentation is just a medium. It's not the absolute fact. Some of us get hung up on the PowerPoint such that if the PowerPoint is not working, then we are all frazzled. But it's a medium. It's simply a medium. Occasionally, people will print out their presentation, the PowerPoint slides. If you have it printed out, you can quickly reach for it and then continue. Up until when the tech has resolved itself, then you can go back. And then you can just buy a minute or two to show whatever concept or image that you wanted to show. But then it should continue. I'll give you a real life example of how this happens. Not as a presentation, but something as relatable. For people who are trained to give massages, body massage. I know it's far removed from what we're talking about, but it's a good example. The people who are trained to give massages, one of their cardinal rules is when you start massaging a person, let's say it's a full body massage and the person is lying in front of you. When you start massaging the person, at no point should you completely lift off your fingers away from the person. You should always maintain some sort of contact with the person. Because if a massage is 1 hour, it means for 1 hour, they have to continuously touch you and be massaging you. But sometimes they want to reach for extra cream or extra oil, or they want to get a hot stone or something like that. Whilst you are reaching for that thing, the massage therapist will always keep a hand or a finger on you to continue the momentum of the sensation of feeling, of being touched. Okay. It adds to the whole experience of a massage. The minute you take your hands away and then you bring back your hands, you are introducing another level of energy which wasn't there in the first place. So massage therapists always will keep their hands on you until the end of the massage. When you leave, you feel good. It's the same as a presentation. Always engage your audience. Never leave them to a point where they are sitting down wondering what is going on. You lose them completely. And then when you start again, it's bad energy vibes before you get back to the momentum. So whilst you're working on your tech, keep engaging them. It can be a joke. It can be even an admission of, oh my God, there's something happening right now. But don't make it so obvious and self-derogatory. It is not your fault that the tech is going bad. Okay, don't make it seem like it is your fault. It will only become your fault if you didn't prepare well. You understand? Good. But thank you for that question. Online people, there are a few more there. So Grace has asked a question. Should I call in the order that I see your name? Samantha, are you there? And Vanessa, and is it Sibanda? That's a lovely name. Vanessa, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Do you have a question for me?
No, please, I don't have a question.
Hey,
Thank you. I enjoyed your presentation, though.
everyone is asking a question, so you have to ask one.
Oh, I'm fine. I guess you did a very great job, so I understood everything.
It's not possible.
It's very
It's
possible.
negative. What is one of your biggest fears about giving a presentation?
It would be the fact that I may be laughed at, maybe in terms of my physical appearance. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's interesting that you're laughing at fear is the physical appearance instead of the knowledge of the subject matter. But it's all good. Um, yeah, for things like that, which are valid concerns, I must say, Vanessa, it's valid that you are concerned about people criticizing how you look, right? But for that one, I beg you, ignore it. Like it should be the last thing on your mind when you're delivering a presentation. As long as you like what you see in a mirror, you yourself, you like what you see in a mirror before you go and stand up. What anybody else thinks about how you look is secondary to you. Cry. So thank you for sharing that, Vanessa. You see that you shared something important to the discussion.
Thank you very much, too.
Good. Samantha and Mami Jemfo, do you have a question? No question. Okay. Oh, if you don't have a question, then you know what I'll ask, right? What is one of your fears about giving a presentation or about science communication?
I think mine is not able to communicate exactly what I want to do
Could you
because
repeat
I
that?
not being able to communicate exactly what's on my mind or in my mind to them
I
because
am
I have a bit of a stammer.
okay.
Sometimes, yeah, I will tend to rush through the speeches.
Yeah. I understand that. And thank you for sharing that. That's also a very valid concern where you are not sure that you can communicate what is on your mind because sometimes what our mind sees is different from how we want it to come out. Eh? Especially if you speak multiple languages. Sometimes you understand it in your mind's language in Ga or in Tree. But for it to come out in English, it's a struggle because the word is not wording. You understand? It's not there. So it is a valid concern. What helps? I find what helps is if you write down your presentation. So if you have a 10-minute presentation, pause for a second and write down everything that you have to say. Write it with your hand. Not don't type it on a computer. There's a big difference. Write it with your hand because what you write with your hand is flowing from the language in your mind to the pen. So write it all and then read it several times. It builds your confidence so that you are never ever at doubt or at a doubt that you are going to convey the topic that you want to deliver in person. Okay. So always write it down. It also helps if you have a stammer, when you write it down, you can easily reflect to your notes during the delivery of the presentation. Okay. Thank you for adding that to our discussion. Samantha, you're the last but one. And then Sibanda, if you are there, do you have a question, a comment?
Hi.
Oh,
Um, my apologies. I was a bit nervous to say something because someone posted this link on LinkedIn and I just joined. So I'm not from Ghana. I'm actually from Miami, Florida. And I just joined this and I was just listening it on. So I was kind of nervous to say anything because I was like, technically, I'm not part of this, or I don't know if I should be here. But I was listening to everything that you were saying, and like I really resonated with everything, especially with what you were saying when you were saying like if you can't communicate your science to the people around you, then you don't really know it. Like you just know like information that you think makes you sound smart, right? Uh, but my question or issue that I've had with presenting is when my mind goes blank because of nervousness. So, like, what do I do after that? Right? I don't want people to interpret what I'm saying like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I know. But in this moment, my mind has gone blank just because I've prepared for this presentation. And maybe something just didn't hit in the room. And my mind has just now gone blank. And my research can't be communicated in this time. So, yes.
well, Samantha, thank you so much for joining, and we are delighted that you are actually joining. Thank you so much. And we hope that it's been useful so far. And yes, a bird can fly in the room if you're in my part of the world, or I don't know, wind can blow some curtain and then steal your concentration away for just a brief moment. What helps with that is if you have little, I would call them cheat sheets, or like small reminder cards, or even a printout of your presentation at hand. So the minute you go blank, you easily can just flip to that page and then remember your train of thoughts. It always helps having those little cards with cues to get you back on track, or a whole printout of your presentation so that you can easily refer. Okay, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's human for your mind to go blank. And you should use the opportunity to just recover and adapt real quick so that you don't lose your audience. Even they go blank half of the time. So it's human and you can fix it. So it's not an issue at all. And thank you once again for joining, Samantha.
Of course, thank you for having me, and thank you for your response. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Last but not the least, Sibanda, if you're there.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So for me, my greatest fear is when I'm presenting before people, is saying something that is not meaningful and wasting people's time. It's really a big thing for me. So before I make a presentation, before I prepare a presentation, I reflect on the message that I want to give to the people out there. What message am I sending? What impact is it? What impact does it have on the people that I am presenting to? And how does it appeal to the feelings of my audience? So, yes, that's about it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it goes very beautifully with what I had mentioned earlier about knowing who your audience is. If you know who your audience is, it means that you have reflected on them and you have prepared your presentation according to their level. And so, by all means, do some homework, even if it's a conference that you're presenting at, do some homework and get an idea of who the participants are. Will you have professors there? Would you have high school students there? Would you have graduate students there? And you prepare your presentation to match that range of diversity of people who are listening to you. All right. If it's high school students strictly, your language has to change. That way, you will not have the feeling of, are you boring these people? Or are they excited about what you're saying? Or are they interested? Whilst you're reflecting, it will also give you an idea of what to include on the slides. If it's high school people and you go and put text only, oh, you lost them on page 1. But if it's high school people and you put art, or you put, or you have a lot of examples, like tangible, relatable examples, oh, they will stay with you from point 1 to point 0. Especially if it's high school students as well. If you ask them questions during your presentation, they will stay engaged. But if you go and ask professors questions during your presentation, you want to shoot yourself in the foot at the same time. So for them, you deliver what you have to deliver and then wait for their questions, right? But for high school students, because you want to draw in their curiosity, you ask them questions. And then they'll feel like, this person was very relatable. Oh, this person is someone we can jive with, and then life goes on from there. So with that, I really want to thank you all for